Welcome back to the Rundown Lab, where we break down and fact check the biggest health podcasts. We know your time is valuable, but when you can, we always recommend catching the full episode. Links are in the description. What if a common kitchen staple could fight inflammation like a mild dose of ibuprofen, help protect your brain, and even change how your body burns fat? That's essentially the premise of a recent deep dive into olive oil research, and surprisingly, most of the science actually holds up. In this episode, Thomas DeLauer explores what happens when you consume significant amounts of extra virgin olive oil daily, walking through studies on everything from inflammation to cognitive function. Let's break down what the research actually says. There's quite a bit this episode gets right, and some of it is genuinely fascinating. The headline claim about olive oil's anti-inflammatory properties is well supported. A landmark 2005 study published in Nature identified a compound called oleocanthal in extra virgin olive oil that inhibits the same COX enzymes that ibuprofen targets. The study calculated that about 50 milliliters of high-quality olive oil, roughly 3.5 tablespoons, provides anti-inflammatory activity equivalent to about 10% of a standard adult ibuprofen dose. That's not a replacement for pain medication, but it does suggest meaningful biological activity from a food. The episode also accurately describes findings from the PREDIMED trial, one of the largest and most rigorous studies of Mediterranean diet interventions. In this research, participants following a Mediterranean diet supplemented with extra virgin olive oil saw their risk of developing type 2 diabetes drop by roughly 50% compared to those following a low-fat diet. The cognitive benefits discussed are also real. A sub-study following over 500 participants for 6.5 years found significantly better scores on memory and cognitive tests in the olive oil group. The brain research goes even deeper. Studies in mouse models of Alzheimer's-related disease have shown that extra virgin olive oil improved memory, enhanced markers of brain plasticity, and increased levels of a protein called conflation 1 that's important for neural communication. Other research has demonstrated that oleocanthal can enhance the clearance of beta-amyloid proteins, those sticky plaques associated with Alzheimer's pathology. And the basic claim that oleic acid, the primary fat in olive oil, gets burned for energy more readily than saturated fats is well-established metabolic biochemistry. Now, where things get a bit more complicated. A few claims in this episode, while not wrong exactly, paint a simpler picture than the science supports. The discussion of olive oil's effects on H. pylori, the bacteria linked to ulcers and stomach cancer, needs some important context. Yes, there was a study where participants consumed olive oil daily for 2 weeks, and yes, it showed some antibacterial effects. But the actual eradication rate was only around 10%. Compare that to standard medical treatment, which eliminates the infection in over 80% of cases. So while olive oil might have some modest antibacterial properties, suggesting it as a meaningful intervention for H. pylori significantly overstates its clinical usefulness. At best, it's a minor dietary addition, not a treatment. There's also a claim about olive oil reducing the activity of an enzyme called SCD1, which the episode characterizes as being associated with fat storage. This is oversimplified in a way that could mislead listeners. SCD1 is actually involved in converting saturated fats to monounsaturated fats in your body. When you eat more oleic acid from olive oil, your body may naturally dial down this enzyme because it doesn't need to make as much monounsaturated fat internally. But SCD1 isn't simply a fat storage switch. Mice genetically engineered to lack this enzyme entirely actually develop metabolic problems. The relationship is much more nuanced than a simple less equals better framing suggests. It's also worth noting that several of the more exciting findings, particularly around brain health and cellular mechanisms, come from animal studies or laboratory experiments with cells. While these are valuable for understanding potential mechanisms, they don't always translate directly to humans eating olive oil with their meals. The concentrations used in lab studies may not reflect what actually reaches your tissues from dietary consumption. The good news is, there are no major red flags here. This episode doesn't make false claims or promote dangerous misinformation. The presenter cites specific studies for major claims, which is more than many health content creators do. The core message that extra virgin olive oil appears to have genuine health benefits beyond just being a source of fat is well supported by peer-reviewed research. So here's the bottom line. This is a generally well-researched episode that accurately represents most of the olive oil science it discusses. The main caveats are that some mechanistic explanations are simplified, the H. pylori claims overstate practical benefits, and listeners should understand that many of the most intriguing findings come from animal research that may or may not apply to humans in the same way. If you're taking away a practical message, it's this. Extra virgin olive oil does appear to offer real health benefits, particularly as part of an overall Mediterranean-style eating pattern. The anti-inflammatory, metabolic, and potentially cognitive benefits have reasonable scientific support. Just remember that quality matters significantly, since oleocanthal content varies widely between oils, and these benefits come from the overall dietary pattern, not from treating olive oil as a medicine. As always, extraordinary health claims require extraordinary evidence, and while olive oil research is promising, it's also still evolving.